And you know, it really is kind of a marker of us growing up. Because now, you know, looking back, I do feel like these kids.
I admit I came late, so I did not catch all of the movie. But a few years ago, Allison mentioned that we saw it in San Francisco, and that was the first time I had seen it in a few years. And Michelle and I, if you don't mind me sharing, went into the bathroom afterwards because we were both bawling and had to fix our makeup, which was down our face. And it was because both of us, I think, I know for me personally, I just remembered who I was at that time, and I remember when I used to watch it, I used to nitpick about myself, about everything I was doing wrong, or how my face looked, or what I ate during that scene, and I wasn't able to enjoy it. And when I was finally able to just watch it and not be so nitpicky, I realized what an amazing film it was and how grateful I was to have been a part of that, and how happy I was that that was my first film. So yeah, it made me cry. And just now, when I was watching the ending, I had to go to the bathroom and fix my face a little. But you know, it is timeless, and to be a part of something that's timeless is pretty special.
I feel like you two are sort of forever intertwined, as people, as actors, as you know, just because of this film. I mean, I so you know, I think for a lot of people, their introduction to you guys as performers was this film, and then so we have sort of linked in that way. I'm wondering, can we talk about a little bit about how you guys got, how you guys were cast for the film? I mean, I'm sure that you guys were chomping at the bit to get these roles. I read somewhere that the process was really long to cast you guys right. And you guys talk about your chemistry when you guys were cast. I mean, you're such good friends now, but you know, there was a point where you guys were strangers. So
I'll say that I stalked Michelle because she was cast before me. So I watched Pumpkin, I watched Oliver, Mind of the Married Man. I watched all these movies that she was in before we had our first, it was even before we tested, actually, together. You had already been cast, and so I knew who you were, and sort of, you know, stalked her and developed a little bit of a crush on her, so I think that came through, but I think that chemistry still exists between us, because Michelle and I have worked on other things together, not as lovers.
Would you guys like to sit next to me?
But I think for myself, you know, I fell in love with Michelle first on screen and then in person.
You know, we have done a number of these. I'm not a number, but this is a great question. But I'm curious what Alice, what was your experience in casting us? Because I auditioned and I had to do a lot of proving, and especially my Chinese was not up to snuff, and I said I could speak and didn't realize Alice could speak.
And also the production team didn't speak Mandarin. It was mainly white, right? Then the casting.
Right. To this day, I can repeat that letter because I practiced it no less than 5,000 times, I think. But I'm curious what your experience was in casting us.
I mean, honestly, it was like, and Teddy will test this, we probably saw every, I'm honestly, for like years after this movie, there wouldn't be anyone on a KFC commercial that I had not auditioned for this movie that was because like we saw everyone, right? Like I think, and I think Teddy found Michelle actually, and when I'd heard, he'd seen this great comedy show, and so someone was flying in from LA to audition in New York. And I actually remember the moment. I was like running up the stairs. I think my casting director was there, and Michelle must have been just sitting just outside the thing. I was like running up the stairs, and I literally saw her. I was like, "Hi!" There was like this I don't know, 2-second hello before I ran in there. But I remember in that moment thinking, oh my God, she looks perfect. But then I wanted to have that poker face thing because I'd already, and then I came in and she auditioned. And I could tell immediately she was an amazing actor. And she had she just absolutely had acting chops. The only thing is that in reality, Michelle is not at all repressed like this character. And it was like very free, and I think danced and and I remember thinking like, oh, I wonder, and we talked about it, but I could tell she was such a strong actor that she very quickly caught the part. And one thing she did, which I didn't even realize, is she was imitating a lot of my mannerisms. Because I didn't know that I looked that geeky. I was like, oh, that's great. Literally was a part. I think Teddy at one point said to me, she's doing you. And I was like, what? So and then in terms of Mandarin, I was really, I was very bullheaded and very stubborn. Thinking like, oh, it's gotta look like this. And I think a lot of Will's lines were almost entirely in Mandarin anytime she spoke to her mom initially in the script. And Michelle literally did a crash course. I think we went back to Taiwan for 2-3 months.
Yeah, I went twice. The first time I hadn't been cast, and Teddy kind of said, you're really gonna need to work on your Mandarin for this role. And, so I did. I went back to Taiwan, took a crash course for I don't know. It was first I think it was 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It was 10 to 12 hours every day, and it was the hardest thing I ever had to do.
She was amazing though, because she really, I didn't realize she was starting from not very much Mandarin at all, but she really memorized all the lines. But I don't know if anyone here has had to learn Chinese from nothing, but it's actually very hard to get the inflections right. And at a certain point I realized okay, she's maybe getting half these lines, but half of them she wasn't. And I had this moment where I literally was there's nobody else who can play this role. And I just went and changed the script and said, you know what, this character now only speaks half Mandarin sometimes and speaks English sometimes to her mom, and I'm just gonna make it work. Mainly because I was we had to have her. I mean, she absolutely had to be Will. And that was a great decision. In terms of Vivian and Lynn, the moment, and she knows this now, the moment she walked into the room, I fell in love with Lynn. It was
I
this.
still have the turtleneck I was wearing. I throw it out.
Do you really?
Yeah, because you told me that.
I told you don't throw out the turtle.
No. You told me that when I walked into the room you knew. So I have this very scratchy blue turtleneck that I won't get rid of by J. Crew.
That's great. I love Jerry Scratch. No, I do. I actually remember that day. I remembered sitting in that room because I'd literally seen all the we auditioned so many people over a 4-month period, and Lynn walked in and I was oh my God, she's perfect. And she didn't have, she had just started. You were just at the very beginning of your acting career at that point. In fact, I think she told me my script was the very first feature-length script she'd ever read. Right? And but I think at the time. We were forced to audition a lot of people, and then I think there was a little bit of some producers felt like they maybe saw sexy more as they wanted. Am I allowed to say this? Okay.
Of course you can say it.
Okay. Well, I got the feedback, not from anyone here, that they wanted someone sexy that was going to be I was forced to audition Victoria's Secret models and just crazy images of what Asian femininity was, and I was that is not this character. This character's a prima ballerina of the New York City Ballet, and literally I was I held firm. I was it has to be Lynn. It's Lynn or nobody, to the point where I almost walked away from my financing on it, and then they were you know what? Okay, and actually about a week into the production, the financer called me up and said, you know what, she's amazing. It's really great you cast her. So.
Well, I want to add to that because, my memory is sort of similar but a little bit different in that we had some resistance to Lynn, and absolutely Alice fell madly in love with Lynn. Shocking because directors don't normally do that. And she was she has to be the one. And at the time, my kids were ballerinas. And I knew what ballerinas looked like, and Lynn did not look like a ballerina. She just didn't. And, but I wanted to support Alice, and the studio that was financing us said that she had to lose weight if she were to be considered. So it was a really uncomfortable conversation because I talked to Lynn's agent or manager and said, hey, you think you could get her to, and this is such a horrible conversation because of everything she stands for today, and it's just shocking because she's obviously so beautiful and so right for the part. And actually, I think there was a change made in the script to go from ballet to modern dance. Was that a change, or was that
No,
always
that was
there?
never changed.
That was always there. Okay, so that I wanted to say that because with Lynn now here, it's so obvious that she was so right. And then on Michelle's side, it's funny because if Michelle had been totally proficient in Mandarin, we might have been in big trouble because because the movie ended up being half in English or greater than half in English, we ended up getting finance because our output deal, we could slot it in with all the movies that Columbia and Sony were doing, and then we got into pay TV, and so we got an allocation of certain revenues that right out of the box made the movie profitable. So if her Mandarin had been perfect, Alice for sure would have insisted that it be done in Chinese. We would have fallen under the 50% rule, and the movie might never have gotten made. So that was a very fortuitous circumstance.
You're welcome.